Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Going Rounds podcast. I think I might be having technical difficulties, so bear with me. Hopefully not. It seems like things are running a little slow. So, yeah. If you're listening right now or watching live, let me know if I'm doing all right because it's not looking great. I'm just looking at all my stats of my life. My life stats and things were not looking good for a minute, so I'm hoping that it's okay. I'm also watching on uh old ass shitty iPad that's connected to the shitty Wi-Fi at the shitty hotel I'm in. So oh sweet. All right. Thanks, Patrick. He said I'm all good. Cool. Yeah, so I'm out of town. Hopefully you don't hear the background noise of this shitty AC unit as well. That's the theme for the day. Shitty. Because being out of town is always shitty. I don't get to, hey, what's up, Pops? Pops says I sound good too, so I got two people in here telling me I'm good, so I'm good. As you can see, stuff's moving around back here. I'm sitting like, I'm in this like condensed spot. I mean, you know it's bad when you're in a fucking Howard Johnson hotel. Like, what the fuck? Oh man, it sucks, but it's all good. I'm just getting through it and doing the damn thing. The worst part I think is that there's like such minimal choices for food here. Like I'm in Springerville, Arizona, and yeah, like the place we got to stay, it's a small town and it's like there's not a lot of options. It's either fast food or you go to one of their like kind of dive bar type places and I don't know. It's tough. But either way, the food is not great and today I tried to go to their little pizza joint and unfortunately I'm a little bit particular about my pizza, so I try to get it a particular way. Like, all I ask for is less cheese. I'm not big on cheese. I don't really like cheese. The only thing I really eat cheese on is pizza. And I just can't have a lot of it. It's not good. It sucks. I'll literally throw up if I get a bite of something I didn't expect to have cheese in it, and then it has a glob of cheese. I will puke on spot. Like, on the spot. So I went and I got pizza and wings, and that's kind of my tradition anyway for Thursdays. Usually at home I'm ordering pizza because I'm trying to get ready for the podcast, so you know, I'm not cooking shit because it just takes too long. So, uh, yeah, so I did the normal thing on a Thursday. I went and tried out their little pizza joint, and yeah, as far as my review on that one, this is all I gotta say. That's right. Boo for fucking you because your pizza sucked. It tastes like cafeteria pizza, and I feel bad because it's like a small town, and I know that this is like the place to get pizza in this spot. So whatever. It's not my thing, but their wings were good. I'm okay with it. I got some honey hot wings. Those were good. You got to do what you got to do. I don't like McDonald's that much for anything but breakfast, and so yeah, trying to have McDonald's every day for dinner is not good. There's a Sonic out here and a Subway, and I exhausted all those already. So, yeah, I tried the pizza place, wasn't great. Whatever. But anyway, this week I'm excited because we have UFC 291. It's a damn good fight card. Like from the bottom to the top, honestly. It's almost better than last month, or well, earlier this month, I should say. The UFC 290 card was good and the fights came through, man. They were really good fights. Everything was great. So, hopefully this one isn't a dud, especially because it involves the BMF belt. That's the championship that's being fought for this UFC pay-per-view. So, no official championship belt but it's a official belt. It's the BMF belt, the baddest motherfucker belt. So previously owned by Jorge Masvidal, who fought Nate Diaz for it, and Diaz didn't show up for that fight. So unfortunately, even though I think he's the baddest motherfucker in the UFC, because Cowboy Cerrone's gone, or was at least, yeah, Jorge Masvidal won. Game bred. Can't down on him. He's a good fighter and he's entertaining. So yeah, then he retired. So now he's doing his thing with his own promotion, doing bare knuckle MMA and boxing events. So he's relinquishing his BMF belt, and he actually squared off the guys that are fighting for it today during the press conference, and supposedly he's gonna wrap the belt around the winner when at the end of the fight. So I guess we'll have to see. Being that he was there for the press conference, I'm assuming he's gonna be there to wrap that belt around him. It's taking place in Salt Lake City, Utah, so higher elevation, which means there could be some boring fights, or there could be some shitty fights because people gas out when it's higher elevation. But we'll get to all that here in a few. There's some other stuff going on this week. There's been some internet beefs, unfortunately, yet fortunately, because it's been entertaining. But some, I don't know, some of it's kind of like, whatever. Masvidal being a part of one of them. And let's see what else. We got a big boxing event this weekend. Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford. There's a lot of hype around that fight, and it seems like it's going to be a damn good fight. I'm thinking that, it's one of those fights where it is a little late, but not as late as like Pacquiao versus Mayweather. So this is a big fight that's actually happening when it should be. So hopefully it turns out to be pretty damn good. I'm going to be watching UFC 291, so I'm not going to be watching the boxing fight, but I'm always on it, ready to see who wins, get the highlights, get the scoop online, and just follow it from there. And of course, I'll recap everything next week too. But yeah, for as far as this week goes, and there's also Bellator versus Ryzen 2. So they did this during the New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve was the first Bellator versus Ryzen. So everyone knows who Bellator is, the MMA organization that has been around for quite a while, trying to rival the UFC. They get a lot of ex-UFC fighters that go over there. A lot of their fighters move over to the UFC and back and forth. So that's always entertaining to watch some of the Bellator fights. And Ryzen is a Japanese organization, I believe, and they're kind of like Pride back in the day. Pride Fighting Championship was dope. They had all kinds of badass old school fighters. They did their fights in a ring, which is just different, than the cage, and it's cool. There's some downsides to it too, but so Ryzen's like the modern day Pride type fighting championship, except they're just not as big. It's not as entertaining, but they do a lot of entertaining stuff. And last time they pulled out all the stops with Bellator, doing a lot of crazy walk-ins and stuff like that. So we'll get to that here soon. I'll cover that a little bit. And then, of course, there was the UFC Fight Night 224 or UFC Fight Night London last week. It was an earlier card. Tom Aspinall headline versus Marcin Tybura. That was a pretty good, pretty decent fight card. A lot of decisions though, so that turned a lot of people off. But as far as the fights themselves that were finishes were pretty damn good. So we'll go through that too. So that's about it for all that. Let's get into it. But before I forget, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Share this with somebody, turn somebody on to the podcast and get me another viewer, another subscriber. Help me out. That always helps. Always trying to grow the channel. But yeah, even when I'm out of town, I'm doing this. So I don't have anything else better to do right now anyway. But I like doing this, so I'm happy to do it. And I'm glad that I can hopefully everything holds up and I can get through it and we can have a full show. So let's get into it with some combat sports news to begin with, as usual, and we'll start with this big boxing event going on this weekend. Errol Spence Jr. versus Terrence Crawford. Might as well take a drink first. Hold on. Like I said, this is a big fight. It's not necessarily happening at the exact time it should have, because when it comes to boxing, that's what always happens. They always prolong it and put it off for far too long. But it's happening, and it's happening before it's way too long down the road, and that's good. Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis did that. They're like full on in their prime. It might have even been too early for Garcia, but when it comes down to it, they did the damn thing, and it was a big fight, and it was very entertaining, and they had a lot of viewership. So, Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford are hoping for the same outcome, and it's looking like, there's a lot of hype around it. So I'm hoping that it's going to work out, fairly well for them. And these are two fighters, I believe they're both undefeated. As a matter of fact, let's look at this right here. Let's see. 28 fights, 28 wins, 0 losses for Errol Spence, 39-0 for Terrence Crawford. So yeah, I was right. They're both undefeated. Again, I'm not like a big boxing guy. I do pay attention to the bigger fights and the names that are recognizable and whatnot, but I've heard about both these guys for a while now, and Terrence Bud Crawford and Errol Spence are always in the mix when it comes to boxing talk. So I have heard of these guys, and I've watched a few of their fights here and there. I thought my music stopped. I was like, damn. But yeah, so it's looking like, they're pretty even for the most part on almost everything. Looks like Terrence Crawford has a little bit more of a reach by about 2 inches, nothing too big. But Errol Spence, nicknamed The Truth. I already said Terrence Bud Crawford, so and then Errol Spence has 3 belts: the WBC, WBA, and IBF belt, and Terrence Crawford is the WBO champ right now. So this should be a pretty good fight. Both title holders. Of course, boxing has like multiple titles. Fucking, you never know what titles what. All these damn letters: WBC, WBA, WBO, IBF, FECK, YOU. Yeah, that's too many fucking belts and too many letters to describe those belts. Too many organizations, but boxing, it is what it is. It's been around for a long time. It's still popular. It's not dead, even though a lot of people try to say it is. The UFC took a lot of clout away from boxing because, UFC fights are way different. There's a lot more to it. And now that it's mainstream, it's, overtaking boxing a little bit, but boxing's still here with the big fights going on. And, you got good fighters with championships ready to put them up and willing to fight for them. Just like Errol Spence is. There he is with his 3 belts, looking all sophisticated with those glasses. This dude has so many different looks, man. Every time I see him, he looks different. It's either the hair, the glasses, the clothes. Something's always different about him. From one time to the next that you see him, it's kind of crazy. But like I said, undefeated, 28-0. Just a good boxer all around, and a lot of people talk about him as being one of the best right now, and he's got the belts to back it up. So when it comes down to it, he's definitely an exciting fighter. And like I said, look, from one picture to the next, he always looks different. And those are some crazy ass shorts there with the OnlyFans logo on it. It's hilarious. Interesting colors though, but he's an interesting dude, as you could tell, I'm sure, just by all these pictures. And I don't know, he seems like a great fighter, and this seems like it's going to be a good fight. He's more of the flashy guy. He's more of the guy that's going to kind of go out there and try to put on a show. But his opponent, Terrence Crawford, he's not so much of that guy. He's more of the type to kind of be quiet, kind of be stoic, and just go out there and do his talking with his hands. So you know, that he doesn't do a lot of the social media stuff and all that. So, you know, this is all just stuff that I've noticed, stuff that I've heard, and things like that. But he's a damn good boxer. And if you hear anybody talking about boxing at the lower weights, you're gonna hear about him. So, big punches though, for sure, coming from Crawford. And I was gonna pull up. Oh man, let's see if I don't make things crash. It's tough doing stuff. It's tough doing things when I'm out of town. It's harder to look things up like I normally do. Maybe I should just use my phone. That might work. Then I'm looking down. Either way, Terrence Crawford, who cares? Big punches, great boxer, looking like it's going to be a great fight. I'm excited to see the highlights because, like I said, I'll be watching the UFC 291 pay-per-view during this. Apparently, there's a chance that this main event for this fight might actually happen before the main event for the UFC, but who knows? I haven't kept up with all the times and stuff. It's tough out here being out of town. And then where I'm at working, I don't have the best of service. So even on my breaks and stuff, I'm not like able to really look through everything. So it's been tough to keep up with it this week, but it's all good. Big boxing match. I'm excited to see if this is going to hold up to all the hype and see who's going to come out the winner, because they've been going back and forth. And, you know, a lot of people seem to be on the side of Terrence Crawford. But, you know, Errol Spence is undefeated as well. Someone's always got to go, as Connor said. But we'll see who comes out with defending their undefeated record and their belts. So, yeah, that's that for the boxing match this weekend. Moving on to some internet beefs. If you don't know who Andrew Tate is, hopefully my video doesn't get taken down for even talking about him. But Andrew Tate, he's kind of a how do you describe him? He's kind of full of himself. He's very full of himself. He's a very just opinionated person, I guess you could say. And he's been accused of things like trafficking women for sex and other things, and he's been arrested multiple times, tax evasion type stuff, and all kinds of shit. He lives in Romania thinking that he's going to stay away from trouble, and instead it's maybe getting him into more trouble. Who knows? But he's still in the mix with all this bullshit. With the legal stuff, I think he's on house arrest, I think, or probation, or I don't even know what he's on, what he's doing right now. He might even just be out on bail. Who knows? But he was in jail for a minute. So, and I know it's not all cleared up yet. So we'll see what happens with all that. But the reason why I'm talking about him, because he's an ex-kickboxer, like, has a decent record. People knew who he was. You know, his nickname was Cobra Tate. So, yeah, I don't know. It sounds like he was a decent boxer. I had never heard of him until he started popping up on social media with all of his crazy talk and just weird views on things, I guess. So, anyway, little background on him, and we all know who Donald Cowboy Cerrone is. If you follow MMA, you do, or if you follow the show, you do, because I talk about him a lot. He's one of my favorite fighters of all time. So, Cowboy and him and Andrew Tate are kind of in a little bit of a beef right now, because someone brought up on a podcast with Andrew Tate that Cowboy had brought up some videos on another podcast and talked about how Tate was not a good kickboxer, even though he has a great record, supposedly, and has a bunch of fights and seems like a killer. Cowboy talked about how he wasn't a great kickboxer and that he was always ducking him and Joe Schilling, one of his friends and training partners and sparring partners. Him and Joe Schilling just go at it, go to war in the gym. So, you know, they're both bad motherfuckers for sure. And yeah, apparently someone talked to Andrew Tate about him saying that stuff, and Tate had some shit to say about that. So let's start with Cowboy's little call out on Instagram earlier this week. Here we go.
Andrew Tate. You got everyone calling and blowing my phone up when I'm out here on vacation. Talking about allegations you want to try and fight me. If I come up to you, it's not a good idea to say it to your face, bro. Please, okay? Back in the day when me and Joe Schilling always used to watch your videos because he wanted to fight you and you ran like a little girl your entire career, bro. Are you kidding me? I'll knock the shit out of you. I'm a real fighter. You're a fake bullshit wannabe fighter made up a bunch of world championship belts that you bought off eBay. Are you kidding me?
So I don't know about that one. I heard that he has like real belts, but I'm not sure. Cowboy might know better. He's been mixed up in the kickboxing world and in the combat sports world for a long time. And being that he's so close with and friends with Joe Schilling, you know, he said Joe Schilling's been trying to fight him for a long time and he kept ducking him. So who knows what he means by all that, but we'll keep going.
I love how you have all your followers thinking that you're something great. Now, you're a great speaker and a moneymaker and a social media fanatic. I'll give you that, sure, but can you fight? Nah.
Just like Cowboy to speak the truth, or at least speak what he thinks is the truth, and he doesn't hold back. You gotta love Cowboy. He had a little more to say here.
Tell you what, though, good thing my buddy Dana White owns a massive fighting organization, and they're doing a Zuckerberg versus Elon Musk fight. Tell you what, you want to get your social media clout involved, I'll fight you on that sumbitch. Or because you don't want to see me on the street, so you might as well just make a date, do it then. When you get your...
So, I mean, he's saying that he's pretty close to Dana White. So is it really going to happen? You know, they made shirts. They've talked about it. That, you know, the chatter's gone down a little bit when it comes to the Zuckerberg versus Musk fight. But, you know, it was a big thing for a while, and, you know, people are still talking about it here and there. There you go. You got Cowboy saying that it's going to happen. Who knows?
Your sex trafficking bullshit under wraps and you get out of jail or you get off house arrest or whatever the hell they got you on right now, let me know. We can set it up and figure it out. Until then, shut the fuck up. Keep my name out of your mouth and enjoy your cigars and trafficking women, brother.
Damn. Just spitting fire. Fucking Cowboy, man. Gotta love the dude. If somebody wants to talk shit about him, he's like, hey, I'm down. Let's do it. Whatever. Here's what Andrew Tate had to say in response. He said, it is what it is. And as far as Cerrone, I've heard of him. Didn't McGregor finish him pretty quick? Weird reference. But, if he has a problem with me, he can come to my house. He knows where I am. Everyone knows where I am. Until then, I have no problems with anybody. As far as Cerrone, if he thinks I can't fight, and if he wants to tell me to my face and kick my ass, he's welcome to try. And I strongly believe he would regret that decision. I mean, you know, it's like he's talking shit, but he's not talking shit. He's showing respect, but still talking shit. I don't know. Who knows? But if you, I mean, like legit in this picture, if you're watching, like he's sitting there, you know, lighting up a cigar. That's what he always does with his shirt off. That's what he does on all these podcasts. He gets on podcasts and he sits there in this same room, you know, all the time, which, you know, that has nothing to do with it. But he sits there with his shirt off, smoking a cigar and his sunglasses on, and he's inside. It's, yeah, I don't know. He's a character for sure. And, you know, a lot of people love what he has to say. A lot of people don't. It is what it is. But if he's starting shit with my boy Cowboy, then I got a problem with him. So I think Cowboy would whoop his fucking ass. So we'll see what happens if they keep talking shit, if they try to set something up. Nothing's going to happen, though, until Andrew Tate gets rid of those allegations and charges that he has on him. If he gets cleared of that soon, maybe. Till then, who knows? We'll see what happens. But continuing with the social media / internet beefs, we have good old Gamebred Masvidal, Jorge Masvidal versus Ben Askren online talking shit to each other again. Because, you know, they fought before. One of the fastest knockouts in UFC history. Jorge Masvidal just started the fight with a flying knee and knocked out Ben Askren cold and stiff, and still got a punch or two in on him after the fact. So that's already happened, but apparently there's a lot of shit talking going on. And Askren was, I guess, running his mouth, saying some shit in the media or podcast, who the fuck knows what he was doing or what he was saying. Somewhere in there it says Jorge Masvidal willing to end retirement for rematch with corny motherfucker Ben Askren in boxing. So Masvidal said he would box him, right? Askren was talking shit about the fact that something about Jesus, I don't even know. There's too much. He said, "No, I'm not going to box George. If George is really a BMF, he will accept a rematch in MMA and not be a coward." He was basically telling Dana to set it up. He said, "I know I'm retired, but I would love to beat up Jorge. Let me know if he is in." And that's what he was texting to Dana after he sent him that article. And the picture on the right is him in the gym, and he says that throughout retirement he's kept in shape, he's still been in the gym, and he's ready to go. So he's challenging Masvidal to another MMA fight, and Masvidal saying, "Hey, I'll fight him again, but in boxing." So here's what Masvidal had to say. "I heard Ben Askren said he'd come out of retirement and fight me. I was like, this dude, he wanted MMA, but for his sake, I'd do boxing if I were him. So I can't knee him in the face. It's illegal. Duh. Come on, man." "Hey, Ben, I'll beat your ass with both hands behind my back. Ben is so bad at boxing. He's the one that said it. Look, Ben, I'll only give you a rematch in boxing, motherfucker. People will tune in because I can't knee him in the face, right? Maybe Ben can I can't even talk. Maybe Ben can get his way now. Hey, Ben, kiss my ass. You coming out of retirement, I'll send you right back into it, motherfucker. This guy, bro, they shouldn't have shown me that comment, you corny motherfucker." So that's what Masvidal had to say. Holy shit. I mean, I expect nothing less coming from Masvidal. He's always game to talk shit, and he's gonna tell it how it is. He's kind of like Cowboy in that way. I don't think Ben Askren should be going after Masvidal again. I don't know what flavor of TRT this motherfucker's on, but apparently he feels pretty confident. So Ben Askren, you need to chill the fuck out, bro. Or go get your ass whooped in boxing again. I don't know, but I don't think you should be talking shit to Gamebred. But Gamebred's real busy right now, so who knows? As Patrick says, Askren is on the wrong end of probably one of the most viral KOs ever. Not to mention he'd get KO'd by a YouTuber. He needs to shut up. Yeah, for real. That's what the fuck I'm saying. He needs to shut up. Like, he got embarrassed twice. Like, how much more do you need? Just chill, hang out, fucking have fun with your money and your family, and get out of here. Like, you don't need any of this anymore. Askren was a great wrestler in his day. He was a great champion at Bellator and with one championship. But it's over, man. Like, you got knocked the fuck out a couple times. One of them you did for money and clout. So just go away, have fun, enjoy your life, get out of the limelight, because it's not doing anything good for you, brother. So, oh man, internet beefs are always entertaining, so I had to cover them. And it's a bunch of UFC fighters talking shit, except for Andrew Tate. He's not a UFC fighter, he's just kind of a asshole. Moving on though, one more thing to cover would be the Ultimate Fighter season 31 episode 9. There wasn't a whole lot going on here. It was the first fight of the semifinals. Obviously this is the time that they start letting the guys have phone calls from home or videos from home from their families, to kind of get them back into, the mind frame that they should be in, because at this point in time, some of the guys get a little antsy, get a little homesick, get a little tired of everything. They're cutting weight constantly and training so much. So when it comes down to it, it's that time. Semifinals, they need a bit of a motivation, and that, this is when they start to give it to them. So, the fight was, the lead up to the fight was not great. There was a little bit of a weight problem with Roosevelt Roberts, who fought Austin Hubbard. Yeah, I don't even have to look it up because I already know. But there was a little bit of a weight problem, but you know, they got it handled, and they, you know, they did the fight. So basically this was a Michael Chandler versus Team Chandler versus Team Chandler, because, you know, obviously Connor only has one fighter in the freaking tournament left. So unfortunately, that means we're going to see a bunch of the fighters from Team Chandler fighting each other. But let me see. I'm going to get down here to this. Let's change that up and get to the fight. So it was Austin Hubbard versus Roosevelt Roberts. Basically, it was kind of just a chess match, except not as strategic. It was more a lot of feeling each other out. It was kind of a boring ass fight. Unfortunately, it went 3 rounds because after the second round, you know, it must have been 1-1. So they went to a third. It says both rounds were pretty close. I mean, I kind of checked out, man. Like the whole thing was just so fucking boring. Connor was not like being outrageous for the most part, so you know, they showed him here and there, but it wasn't like a bunch. So yeah, in the end, it was a split decision win for Austin Hubbard, so he advances to the finals. And you know, unfortunately for Roosevelt Roberts, he had that hard weight cut. He actually cut off his dreads even to make weight, which was kind of crazy. You know, it's not like it hasn't been done before, but you know, it's pretty nuts to see him cut all of his hair off just to make weight. But it worked, but unfortunately he still lost the fight, and so he loses his hair and he loses his fight, and he loses the chance to be the Ultimate Fighter winner. So yeah, it kind of sucks, but judging by the look on Dana's face, he wasn't happy. He basically said everyone lost. No one won in this fight or this episode, because that's how boring of a fight it was. Like, I know they're trying not to get like super hurt because they might have another fight if they win, but go out there and lay it all out, man. Like, fucking, if you ever watched this show before, you don't get ahead by taking it easy and taking rounds off and just not putting your all out there. It doesn't ever work. So, and it sucks. I couldn't imagine the situation that they're in or how they feel and how much they gotta suffer going through, you know, living in the house and all that shit. But man, if you're fighting for that contract, you gotta make it worth it. And that's what Dana White's about. Everyone should know by now. I mean, he's been around for so goddamn long, and he says it over and over again. So, rather unfortunate way to end that episode, but it is what it is. The next semifinal fight, oh shit, I opened up the wrong thing. The next semifinal fight is, trying to update my computer right now. That's not happening. Let's see. Always something, man, when I'm not at home. Okay, there it is. I lost it because of that pop-up. The matchups are Rico DeCilio, who's the only guy left for Team McGregor, versus Cody Gibson. Brad Katona versus Timur Valiev. Kurt Holobaugh versus Jason Knight. And then, of course, the fight that already happened, Austin Hubbard versus Roosevelt Roberts. So, those are the guys left in the semifinals. Austin Hubbard clinches his spot in the finals for the lightweights. So he'll either be fighting Kurt Holobaugh or Jason Knight. And I believe Brad Katona versus Timur Valiev is the next fight up. By the way, Brad Katona is the only guy that went over to Team McGregor voluntarily. They asked Kurt Holobaugh and Austin Hubbard to go over there and be a part of Team McGregor, but they said no. They were like, we're not doing that. That's not the way we would like to train. That's not like the way we like to fight. We're sticking with our team. So Chandler had to kind of make that up, you know, like make that work. So for training and all that. And they did. I mean, that's what happened. It seemed like it was weird though. During the fight, it was very quiet. There wasn't a lot of yelling because it's teammates fighting each other. So it was kind of a weird fight on top of being boring. Hopefully the next one is not like that. But we'll see what happens. All right, let's move on to a recap. Oh, damn it. I knew something would happen. There you go. Tom Aspinall versus Marcin Tybura was the main event for UFC Fight Night London this past Saturday. Not a bad card. Like I said, it was a lot of decisions, man. That's the bad part. Let me count how many. Let's see. One. Oh my God. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 decisions out of 15 fights. Yeah, not a lot there. The first fight of the night was Rafael Filio versus Daniel Perez, and that ended in a submission by arm triangle. Filio with the win on that one, but then they went on a streak of decisions, and unfortunately the chick from Ireland, Shauna Bannon, who was making her debut, and there was a lot of hype around her because she's like one of the few Irish women to get into the UFC, and she's like 8-0, undefeated, but unfortunately she got a unanimous decision against her and lost the fight to Bruna Brasil. So that ended her undefeated streak. But there's a lot of guys in the UFC that debuted undefeated, debuted in the UFC, lost their first fight, got rid of that undefeated record, and then went on to do a lot of big things. So she's highly touted. We'll see what she comes back and does, and if she makes up for that. So like I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 decisions in a row. Mahmoud Muradov defeated Brian Barberena by unanimous decision, and then Ketlin Vieira beat Penny Kianzad by unanimous decision as well. So those were part of that nasty streak of decisions. Good God. I mean, I don't mind a decision fight, but when it's not, super entertaining, it's a bit harder to, deal with it. So, but moving on to one of the more exciting fights, a little bit controversial, Joel Alvarez versus Mark Diakase. So what was happening in this fight, Diakase came out and, did what he could in the first round. But in the second round, Joel Alvarez started to get the best of Diakase and kind of frustrating him a bit. But the controversial part is that Alvarez was kind of putting it on Diakase, and he kind of dove inward and wound up headbutting Diakase behind the ear. And that's what you're seeing here in this picture. If you look closely, you see the red stripe in Diakase's head. But Alvarez, was going in for a punch or something and wound up headbutting him back of the ear, so you get your equilibrium all off and shit. And unfortunately, Diakase was pretty hurt by that. He grabbed the back of his head because, obviously he got headbutted there, so that had to have hurt for sure. And the ref didn't stop anything, and he was just kind of hurt, and Alvarez went after him, wound up getting him down to the ground, and, putting some work in on him there, and then ended it in the second round by submission. I believe Darce choke. Oh no, they called it a Bravo choke. I don't know what that is. Either way, second round. So that fight was pretty good. We had Johnny Parsons versus Danny Roberts in the next fight. This wound up TKO by punches with Johnny Parsons getting the win. But, before that, it was going back and forth a little bit. Danny Roberts was showing out a bit. And, you know, but Parsons just with his wild, crazy punches and his hair, he just started putting it on Danny Roberts and wound up getting to that second round and finishing him and getting that win. That's a nasty picture. Look at that spit coming out of his mouth. I picked this one because every picture looked crazy with these two guys, because it's either something like this happening or Parsons with his hair doing something crazy too. But yeah, that was another one of the kind of more exciting fights of the night. And then moving on from there, we had, let's see, some more decisions. Daniel Marcos versus Davey Grant. Marcos wins by split decision. Lerone Murphy versus Joshua Culibao. Unanimous decision win for Lerone Murphy in that one. Let's see. Unanimous decision again for Fares Ziam with the win over Jai Herbert. Then we get to another one of the more exciting fights, because holy shit, these decisions were just too much after a while. But we had it seemed like my light just flashed. That's weird. Damn, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. So we had Paul Craig versus Andre Muniz. That was a pretty damn good fight, and Paul Craig is always involved in a good fight. You know, a lot of people like to watch him fight because he's good on his feet, he's good on the ground, and it's always exciting. Here's Muniz getting a nice shot on Paul Craig, but Paul Craig started, you know, got back at him, did work like he always does, started dominating, and let's see. Oh man, I got too many things going on here. Not enough screens, that's the problem. I'm used to having like all these screens up here so I don't have to jump back and forth, and it's kind of throwing me off. But yeah, Paul Craig getting him down to the ground, getting on top, throwing some ground and pound, and finishing Andre Muniz by TKO in the second round. So then we move on to, well, Nathaniel Wood versus Andre Fili. Unanimous decision by Nathaniel Wood. Again, decisions after decisions. But then one of the bigger fights that I was looking forward to was Molly McCann versus Julia Stoliarenko. And this one was like I said, one of the ones I was looking forward to because I like Molly McCann. There's a lot of, you know, hype around her, and she's definitely one of the most popular women fighters in the UFC. But man, she did not have a good night. She just looked flat. She didn't look like she looked like she was overwhelmed right away, and it wasn't good for her. Let's see, it was only in the first round. She got stopped in the first round. Because as you see here, even everything she was landing, she was getting countered. But Stoliarenko wound up getting her down to the ground. Something that Molly McCann is not great at is being on the ground. She's not good with her jiu-jitsu. She's not good with takedown defense, and she's just not good at grappling that much. So I think that's definitely something she needs to work on to get better. She's very good on her feet. She's got good hands and good kicks, but she's just not good on the ground, and it's her weak spot, and she definitely needs to work on that, because if she doesn't, she's going to continue on this track of losing by submission, because, you know, anytime she goes down to the ground, if somebody has any kind of skills on the ground with grappling or jiu-jitsu, she's getting tapped. So it's not good for her. She needs to get herself in just better form when it comes to the grappling and jiu-jitsu. So as you can see here, though, Stoliarenko is actually known for her arm bars. Like I mentioned in the preview last week, you know, she's kind of like Ronda Rousey-esque. She's like constantly taking arms and finishing fights by submission, by armbar. So it's like her, you know, it's her signature move. Molly McCann's not good enough on the ground to avoid it. So as soon as she got the opportunity, she threw that submission in, got the armbar, got the win. She was happy as hell. I'd assume, you know, all that hype around Molly McCann means a win over her in that fashion is going to get some of that clout going your way, a little bit of that hype going your way. And she's been on a streak of she's been on quite the streak of armbar submission finishes. She's 11-7 overall. She lost to Chelsea Chandler her last fight before this one, but before that she beat Jessica Rose Clark by armbar. She lost by submission, but then she has so many arm bars on her record. It's insane. So this is just her signature move, and if you give her a chance, she's going to try to put that move on you. And that's what happened with Molly McCann. And unfortunately, you know, she was pretty gutted about the whole thing. And I think she just realized that she was outclassed on the ground, and that's going to continue to happen unless she gets better. But she did announce that she's moving from flyweight, which is 125. Let's see. It does. Oh man. Yeah, I'm right. What the hell? Why am I thinking? Yeah, flyweight. Flyweight is 125 for the women, and that's the. Jeez, I just noticed something. Oh well, that's the weight class that she was fighting in for this fight. So she announced that she's going to go down to 115. I guess she's pretty confident in the fact that she can make that weight, and maybe she thinks her competition, you know, will be a little different down there. Maybe she can be the bigger girl and bully some girls around to get some wins under her belt. Maybe move back up later, a little down the road. I'm not sure exactly what her mindset is on that, but she's moving down to 115. At least that's what was announced, and that's what she's having everyone believe at the moment. So it's always good to see that respect in the end. You could tell Molly McCann was gutted and defeated and just down and out after getting submitted, but you know, she still stands up and shows that respect. And I always like it when I see these kind of pictures or the video at the end where they give each other a bunch of respect, and you know, the girls wind up crying in each other's arms, or you know, just very emotional about the whole thing, because obviously it's like that after a fight, but it's always cool to see them show respect. So I just thought that after how devastated like Molly McCann was to get that loss, she still stood up and was a very good sport about it. So that was cool. Wanted to highlight that one. I'm hoping Molly McCann has some luck down in the strawweight division. Doesn't have too much trouble cutting weight, because that shit will fuck you up for a while. Like, it's gonna change your life trying to suck too much weight out. You know, I've seen a lot of fighters just go downhill because of the weight cuts. So hopefully she puts it all back together, gets back on that winning cycle, and we see her back up in the mix sometime soon. And then for the main event, Marcin Tybura versus Tommy Aspinall. Aspinall just looked as good as he always does. You know, he was out with the surgery that he had to have because of his knee injury that he suffered during the Curtis Blades fight, his last time out. So that was, I think I said, over a year for sure. Yeah, because it was in July of 2022 when he lost to Curtis Blades because of that knee injury. So he got surgery and makes his way back almost exactly a year later to get a win in the first round against Marcin Tybura. And, you know, Aspinall showed all of the good shit that he always shows. His kicks, heavy punches. This is the one that knocked down Tybura. He caught him flush on the chin, fucking dropped him, and then, you know, followed him down to the ground, finished it up with some ground and pound, TKO by punches, elbow and punches in the first round. So Aspinall, you know, showing what he has, that the surgery didn't affect him, the time off didn't affect him, comes in, gets a first round finish against Marcin Tybura, who is not just a lower level fighter that is barely known. I mean, he's a pretty damn good fighter, and I thought it was going to be a pretty decent fight, but Aspinall just came out and dominated and showed that he's ready to come back and get back into contention. So he's already talking about having one fight and then fighting for the title. He's talking about fighting John Jones already and everything. So him and Jones had a little bit of a back and forth online as well. It was kind of funny. Just John Jones being John Jones, condescending, fucking sarcastic. That's what he always does. Unless you really get him fired up. But yeah, they had their little back and forth. A lot of people think that Aspinall needs to kind of calm down because he's getting a bit ahead of himself. I think he just needs to go in there and show and prove. Maybe take it to the second or third round and show that you got a little bit of cardio and longevity in there and stamina. And maybe people will stop doubting. But he did just come back, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he does next. Because he's a damn good fighter and he's entertaining and he's pretty popular. So it's always fun to watch those guys on their come up. But yeah, that about does it for last weekend's fights. Like I said, the good fights were good fights, but the decisions, it was just a lot. So it felt like a long day of fights because it was during the day. I think the main card started at noon. So either way, UFC London, UFC Fight Night London is now behind us, and we move on to the pay-per-view this Saturday, UFC 291. Oh, you know what I just realized? That's hilarious. I just realized that I've had this one on the whole time. Huh. Oh well. Oh man, those little things that I don't notice until I pay a little closer attention. Either way, UFC 291. This is gonna be a damn good card. This is gonna be some damn good fights. As you see on the poster, Jan Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira for or in the light heavyweight division. And you know, a lot of people speculated that it might be for the belt, considering Jamal Hill is now injured and relinquished his belt, but they did not announce it. They're not doing this for the belt, but there's a lot of talk about the winner of this one getting to fight for the belt, more than likely against Yuri Prohaska, who had to relinquish the belt when he got hurt before Jamal Hill and is now coming back soon. So of course he's going to get his title shot right away, especially with the way the division looks right now, the state of the division. Everyone's pretty much saying that Yuri is basically the champ right now anyway. So, because he never got beat for his belt, and it didn't even get defended after it got won. So, you know, the belt's just changing hands a bunch. So, they're just saying that Yuri is basically still the champ. He should come back, fight for the belt right away, and hopefully it'll be against one of these guys. But Alex Pereira coming up from middleweight. We'll get into that later. But the main event, damn exciting for the BMF title. Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje Part 2. Because the first fight happened a few years ago. It was a fucking banger. Fight of the night, fight of the year, everything. You know, both these guys like to go to war. Both of them are not scared to throw. And both of them are not scared to stand in front of someone and trade punches and kicks and everything else. So that's why I'm excited about this fucking card. And like I said, usually the International Fight Week card is the more highly anticipated and very, like, has a lot of hype around it. And it kind of did, and it did show out. Like, International Fight Week card, UFC 290, it was a damn good card. And it was a lot of good fights. So that's going to be hard to top, but this one has a potential for sure. With everybody that's in the prelims even, that's what's crazy about this fight. Going from the bottom, we have Miranda Maverick versus Priscilla Cachoeira, who, that is a fucking banger of a fight right there. Miranda Maverick is always just, you know, basically winning. She lost her last fight, which makes me sound like a liar, but it was by unanimous decision against Jasmine Jasdavicius. But Miranda Maverick is a beast. And before that, she was on a 2-fight win streak. She's fought a bunch of big names: Erin Blanchfield, Macy Barber, Jillian Robertson, Pearl Gonzalez, Deanna Bennett, everybody. And you know, she's got the losses in there, but she's got a lot of wins. I just know that this is going to be a pretty damn good fight. Her opponent is Priscilla Cachoeira, 12-4 on a 2-fight win streak. Last fight being against Ariane Lipsky, which was back in August of last year. She hasn't fought in a while. But yeah, so I mean, that's the kind of fight that you're starting the night with. So this is kind of like UFC 290, where from the bottom to the top, it was great fights and people that you recognize on every fight pretty much. So let's see. Matthew Semmelsberger versus Uros Medic is the next fight up. Semmelsberger, you know, I've covered him quite a few times during fight nights and whatnot. CJ Vergara versus Vinicius Salvador, the next fight up. Jake Matthews versus Darius Flowers. Roman Kopylov versus Claudio Ribeiro. I'm sorry, did I say? Yeah, Roman Kopylov versus Claudio Ribeiro. And then headlining the prelims, Derek the Black Beast Lewis versus Marcos Rogerio de Lima. That's going to be a banger, except heavyweights in Salt Lake City with elevation. Usually not a good thing. But they put him on the main, they put him as the main event in the prelims for a reason, because they don't expect that fight to go very long. Derek Lewis has not looked great in his past few fights. He's got 3 losses in a row, but against really big names: Tai Tuivasa, Sergey Pavlovich, and Sergey Spivak. So those are a lot of big names. But he is on a 3-fight losing streak, so that's why he probably got moved down to the prelims. And he just needs to get that big win. But Rogerio de Lima is on a 2-fight win streak. So one of those fights being against Andrei Arlovsky that he won. So yeah, it's not going to be an easy fight for him. Hopefully Derek Lewis can fucking catch de Lima before he tries to take him down, and make it a quick night, knock him the fuck out quickly, and move on. That would be the best bet for Derek Lewis in this one, because that's a tough fight otherwise. If he takes him down, grapples him, and yeah, it's not going to be a good night for Derek Lewis, and that's not what I want to see. So hopefully he's got his shit together and is ready. And I think I saw something posted on social media yesterday or today where he said, just wait till you see me at the weigh-ins, I'm gonna have a 6-pack, which is a stretch if you know who Derek Lewis is. But Derek Lewis is always out there being funny on social media, so who knows, he might be fucking around. But anyway, that's the prelims only. So now we move on to the main card. We got a welterweight bout: Michael Chiesa versus Kevin Holland. Right away, first fight of the main card, a banger. Like, both these guys, Chiesa is a gamer for sure. Kevin Holland always going out there to put on a show, and he's always ready to throw and ready to make it exciting and being a high-paced fight, and he talks mad shit. So Chiesa's not much of a shit talker. He'll talk back when it seems like it's necessary for him. But other than that, he's pretty much a pretty calm guy. But he's a damn good fighter. Lots of good striking. Doing shit like this against Neil Magny says it all. But Chiesa's a good fighter. He just hasn't fought as much recently. He's 16-6. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. His last fights were in 2021. I think he might have had an injury in there somewhere, but he's been doing a lot of the analyst work and working the desk during the fights and stuff like that. So he's been out for a bit since 2021, and he's on a 2-fight losing streak. So he's looking to get back in that win column against Kevin Holland, who is not an easy fucking opponent to take on. He's kind of an awkward fighter. He's very long and lanky, and he's got a kind of a weird fighting style. And this is him when he was on the ground with Jacare Souza and fucking knocked him out on his knees, which was pretty insane. So yeah, there's a lot behind Kevin Holland. I've talked about it before, where for like 3 or 4 fights in a row, he was constantly like stopping crimes, which is very odd. In the streets, somebody would steal a purse, he'd chase him down. Somebody's getting assaulted and he fucking stopped it. Someone was trying to rob some place and he stopped them and held him down and waited for the cops. All this shit was on video too, so it was pretty nutty. But yeah, Kevin Holland, he's a badass in the cage too. But his last one was a good one, a KO in the 3rd round against Santiago Ponzinibbio. That was back in April of this year. Before that, he was on a 2-fight losing streak though, against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Khamzat Chimaev. I know he was pretty upset after that Khamzat Chimaev fight, because he took that on short notice when he was fighting on the card, but he was supposed to be fighting Tony Ferguson, I think. Yeah. And then they changed it up because of Khamzat not being able to make weight when he was supposed to fight Diaz. So Holland and Ferguson just switched, I guess. And yeah, he got submitted fairly quick in the 1st round by Khamzat Chimaev. So he's looking to come back, and that last fight was impressive against Ponzinibbio. So he's looking to come back and get back on a good win streak and, you know, show what he's about. And he's always in an exciting fight, like I said. So it's definitely one to watch against Michael Chiesa. Moving on, we just talked about Tony Ferguson, and here he is going to be fighting against Bobby Green in a lightweight bout. 2nd fight of the night on the main card. Shit, man. Again, 2 guys who just love to go in there and put on a show. Fucking Tony Ferguson is just crazy, and he's exciting, but he's crazy, and he's just awkward, and he's always saying and doing something weird. So it's always an experience when you watch Tony Ferguson fight. But he's one of the best out there. Was for a long time. A lot of people say he dropped off. He's 39 years old now, 25-8, and he hasn't looked good in his last fights because he's on a 5-fight losing streak. But look at these names: Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush, Michael Chandler, and Nate Diaz. I mean, that's a lot of big names. You can't really blame the dude for losing, but he is on a nasty losing streak, because before that he was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 fight win streak, spanning from 2013 to 2019, with all those Khabib fights that got canceled in between because of injuries and whatnot. So yeah, Ferguson is just one of those. Ferguson's that type of guy. I lost track here of. Here we go. But yeah, I mean, he's always in a crazy fight. He's always getting bloody. As you can see here, bloody already, getting a good punch in on Anthony Pettis, and then this another angle. Bloody fights is, and wars is what Tony Ferguson gets into all the time. And if he's not the one that's bleeding, his opponent's bleeding. Everyone leaves there with damage when it's a Tony Ferguson fight. And he's looking to make that happen again this time, because he says he's feeling the best he's felt in a long time. And he had a lot of good things to say about how much different of a person he is, and how just motivated and like focused on fighting. So that could make for a dangerous Tony Ferguson. But they gave him a pretty fucking hard matchup when it comes down to it. King Bobby Green is his opponent, and man, Bobby Green likes to talk, and he was definitely talking during that press conference today, talking mad shit. 29-14, 3 years younger than Tony Ferguson. He's 36 years old, coming off a no contest to Jared Gordon with the accidental clash of heads. So that was his last fight back in April, when him and Jared Gordon clashed heads as he was going in for a punch. He fully missed the punch, but they they headbutted, and that's actually what knocked down Jared Gordon. And then Bobby Green jumped on top of him, and ground and pound to a TKO win is what they called it. And then they went back though and went to the replay, and they found out it was an accidental clash of heads, so they called it a no contest, and Bobby Green did not get that win. So technically he's still on a 2-fight losing streak, losing to Drew Dober and Islam Makhachev, both by KO and TKO to punches. So if Tony Ferguson shows up being the Tony Ferguson of old, Bobby Green might have a little bit of problem on his hands. But he is a character, and he is ready for war all the time, and he comes out there fucking ready to bang and talking mad shit. So and Ferguson did not look interested in dealing with any of the talking. He just said, better watch yourself, Bobby Green. That's pretty much what he said. So hopefully that means Ferguson's gonna come out there looking great. I just want it to be a good fight, and I hope that Ferguson does not just get knocked out cold like he did against Michael Chandler. I just don't want to see him get knocked out like that again. Hopefully there's some validity to all of the things he's saying about how he feels and how he feels like what kind of shape he's in right now, and his focus and momentum and motivation. So I guess we'll see. I'm excited about that fight. So that's 2 fights down, 2 big fights, 4 big names, and that continues with a welterweight bout. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Michel Pereira. It's the same as Alex's last name, who's the next fight. So it's Pereira, basically. But yeah, Wonderboy up there in age now, like 40 years old at this point, which for fighting, that's pretty old. And it's hard to call him Wonderboy. That's what everyone's talked about. Hard to call him Wonderboy when he's 40 years old. But and he's looking his age a little bit too. I mean, he still kind of has that baby face a little, but he's got the grays going on, and just the way his hair is, it like makes him look a little older. But yeah, 17-6. Last win against Kevin Holland, who I mentioned earlier. That was back in December. This is his first fight this year. Before that Kevin Holland win, he was on a 2-fight losing streak, but to big names: Bilal Muhammad, Gilbert Burns. Lots of decision wins or losses. Everything's by decision except for a couple KO and TKOs. So yeah, decision time is what it's looking like with this one. But Wonderboy shows out for sure. He's one of those kind of karate guys with the wide stances, and the big kicks. He's long, he's lanky, he's got good strikes. That's his biggest thing, is striking. Him and Kevin Holland actually kind of came to a gentleman's agreement that they would stay standing up and not do any wrestling or grappling. But Kevin Holland got beat up enough to where he reverted back to the wrestling in the middle of the fight. But Wonderboy still got the best of him. And here's a little example of the kicks, because Wonderboy is, like I said, point karate is kind of his background, and there's a lot of fast, dynamic, crazy kicks that happen in those kind of tournaments and that kind of fighting. So that's what he's big with. So that's what you're gonna see: a lot of big, fast kicks, and a lot of big strikes coming from Wonderboy. And he doesn't usually take people down. So, but he does have to be careful for Michel Pereira, because he does shit like this. Lots of crazy acrobatic shit. Like, this is a flying knee, nothing crazy. We've seen it before, but he springs up like a fucking, like a jack in a box. And he'll do it at the most random times, and he won't like do the Masvidal where he runs from the side of the cage, gets momentum and speed, and jumps as high as he can. This fool will be standing there clinched up and just out of nowhere just spring up with a fucking flying knee like this. So you have to watch out for that kind of shit. The knees are big for him. He tries to land them a lot. He does capoeira type moves as well, and he'll do this crazy like backflip thing and tries to land on you. Looks like a WWE move. I don't know, man. Does a lot of crazy shit, but he's a decent fighter. And I know that this could be a crazy fight between these two. Even if it goes to decision, it's going to be entertaining because both these guys like to throw crazy strikes. So Michel Pereira is 29, so a lot younger than Wonderboy, 28-11, and he's on a 5 fight winning streak. Kind of quiet on that front because not a lot of people have talked about how many fights in a row he's won recently since 2020. He hasn't fought yet this year. His last fight was May of last year against Santiago Ponzinibbio. So yeah, 5 fight win streak. Is he going to keep that going now that he faces Wonderboy, or is Wonderboy going to break that streak and, you know, make it 2 in a row for him? I don't know, but he's got to watch out for those crazy strikes. Now, moving on to the co-main event, another big one. Jan Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira, another Pereira, another Brazilian with the yellow shorts. But we know Alex Pereira from the middleweight division, so this is his light heavyweight debut versus Jan Blachowicz, who is no stranger to fighting middleweights coming up to light heavyweight because he fought Israel Adesanya for the belt, for the light heavyweight belt, a while back, and you know, he beat Izzy. So he's a lot bigger than Izzy, though, as far as like build, and you know, he's kind of thicker, way thicker than fucking Izzy. But everyone thought Izzy was going to be able to catch him with some good strikes, but Blachowicz took him down and just beat him up on the ground pretty much. Dominated and didn't let him get up. So kind of showed a bit of a weakness, a bit of hole in the game of Israel Adesanya, but he made it happen. That was when was that? That was in 2021. Then he lost his belt to Glover. Got a win against Alexander Rakic, and then came to a draw for the vacant belt when Glover, or when Yuri, when Yuri Prohaska got hurt in 22. He fought Magomed Ankalaev for the belt and came to a draw. So that's when I think Glover and Jamal Hill fought for the belt, and that's when Jamal Hill got it. So anyway, a little bit of a timeline there, but as far as Blachowicz goes, like I said, I mean, he's got heavy hands. He could definitely knock you out. He's got knockout power, but you got to watch out for him on the ground, because if he gets you there, he can hold you there. And Alex Pereira is not known for being a grappler or a jiu-jitsu guy. He stands on his feet. He's a kickboxer by trade. So that's what his bread and butter is. That's what he's done in the past, and he was a champion. And has a lot of big fights and a lot of big wins being a kickboxer. So he makes his move over to MMA. He's not known much as a grappler. So if Blachowicz can get him down right away and hold him down like he did against Izzy, I think it's going to be somewhat of a boring fight and a long fight. A long 3 rounds for Alex Pereira if that's what happens. But I see Blachowicz coming out with the win if that's the route he takes. But he's got to keep himself from getting hit by Alex Pereira, because that's the difference. You know, if you get hit by Izzy, being a bigger guy in the weight division higher, I would say Izzy might not have the power to knock you out with one shot. But Alex Pereira looks like a light heavyweight already, before he even moved up to the actual division. So with how big he is and how heavy those hands are, him knocking fools out like this stupid dumb motherfucker right here, Sean Strickland, piece of shit. Yeah. Oh man, I've heard so much about Strickland this week. I hate him so much. He's so stupid. I had to get that one out. But it makes me happy to watch him get knocked the fuck out right here by Alex Pereira, which I've said before. I will always show something about that when it comes to these two, because that's one of my favorite things I've seen. But you know, Pereira with those big punches like he did to Izzy when he caught him and beat him to get that middleweight belt. He hasn't had a ton of fights in the UFC, and that's what's kind of crazy. And already he's 7-2 in MMA overall. He's had 5 UFC fights. He's already been the middleweight champion and lost the belt. And he's moving up to light heavyweight and possibly being the number one contender if he wins to fight for the belt next. It's insane. Like that's how good he is. He was undefeated in the UFC until Izzy beat him the last fight that they had in April to win his belt back, and he's only been to one decision. So everything else is KO or TKO, win or lose. So yeah, it's an exciting fight when it comes to Pereira and any fight that he's in. Only problem is if you take him to the ground, it's going to be boring. So that's Blachowicz' way of getting the win, but he's got to get past Pereira's punches and kicks first, and that's the way for Pereira to win, is to catch Blachowicz before he starts grappling and taking him down. Could be very exciting, could be very boring. It's a toss-up, but I'm excited for it either way because that's a big fight. Now we move on to the main event for the BMF belt, the lightweight championship belt for the BMF. it's I don't know what else to call it. It's for a belt, so it's a championship, right? I guess. Either way, I'm excited for this fight with or without this fucking belt. The belt doesn't really mean shit. They're both badass motherfuckers, and we know that. Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje. Just watch any of their fights. Whether it went to decision or there was a finish, they're exciting as fuck. And I know I keep saying that, but this is the kind of card this is. When I'm talking about all of the fighters this way and all of the fights this way, it's because they all have potential to be some of the best fights that have happened this year. And there's been a lot of great fights this year. But these two in particular have fought each other before and gave us a great fight. We have the evidence there that this is potentially going to be the fight of the night, if not for sure going to be the fight of the night. Dustin Poirier is he's definitely one of the most exciting fighters on the roster, one of the most popular guys. Great dude. Has a lot of big wins under his belt, including this one against Conor McGregor, who he's beaten twice now. But he's 29-7, coming off a win over Michael Chandler. He got the submission by rear naked choke in the third round. That was on that November card where Israel Adesanya lost his belt. Before that, he lost to Charles Oliveira when he was fighting for the championship there. But yeah, and then in this picture, he's got this win against McGregor. Both times that he's fought him, he's got the win. Even though, McGregor got the leg injury the second time, the win still goes to Poirier. So he's got 2 wins over McGregor, a win over Michael Chandler, Max Holloway, Eddie Alvarez, Justin Gaethje, Anthony Pettis, Jim Miller, Bobby Green, Yancy Medeiros, all kinds of big names, Dan Hooker. And he's only lost to big names as well, Charles Oliveira and Khabib Nurmagomedov, and Michael Johnson. And Conor, the very first time they fought. Like, it's so crazy. His record is insane. And, all of his fights are insane as well. Like I said, oh shit, I think I pressed the wrong button. No, I didn't. This is how he got Chandler to the ground before submitting him. With all these big punches. He's got a good left hook. He's got power in both hands, and he's got the kicks. He's got everything. That's why he's always constantly at the top of his division and constantly in contention for the belt. And now he's fighting for the BMF belt against Justin Gaethje, who he's fought before and beat. Let's see. This was back in 2018. He beat him by TKO by punches in the 4th round. So they were headlining a UFC on Fox. And yeah, it was one of the best fights, definitely, of that year. So, Justin Gaethje, though, no stranger to crazy fights. to wars, to lots of damage, and lots of KOs and TKOs. Here he is against Tony Ferguson, who's fighting on this card as well. But you know, I think he kind of changed Ferguson a little bit. Like, that beating he put on him was insane. Just like most of the fights he's involved with. He's 24-4 overall in MMA, coming off a crazy good win against Rafael Faziev back in March. It was a majority decision win, but it was an exciting ass fight. I actually have a picture coming up of that fight. Before that, he lost to Charles Oliveira as well. He beat Michael Chandler. Like, this is what this picture's from, I believe. Oh no, this is Ferguson. I'm sorry. But yeah, he had a win against Ferguson, Cerrone, Barbosa, James Vick. Lots of wins against big names. So, and then like I said, he's fought Poirier before and lost to him as well back in 2018. So that's Justin Gaethje for you. Big uppercuts, lots of strikes, lots of damage, either inflicted or taken. Either way, great fights all around. Here's that fight against Faziev. He bloodied him up. He damaged the fuck out of him. Faziev's face was just mangled after this fight. But it was a great fight and a great win for Justin Gaethje. So that's the main event for UFC 291. I'm so hyped for that fight. I'm hyped for this whole card. I can't wait for it. I think it's gonna be a great one. And I think we're just gonna have banger after banger after banger when it comes to the fights. So don't miss this shit, because it's gonna be good. I was gonna do a watch party, but I decided, since I'm out of town this week and I gotta go back out of town next week, I'm not gonna put all the pressure on myself to get everything done and ready for it. So I'm just gonna watch them at home, but I'm gonna have a few people over and it should be fun. So I'm just excited to be able to get to sit down, focus on these really, really good fights and watch the whole card. So that's UFC 291, and that's it for the show today, because I'm about talked out. And I went a little shorter than usual, even, because normally I'm going into the 8:30, 8:45-ish, but, you know, there was a lot to talk about, but also got through it kind of quick. Don't forget to watch the fights this weekend. You have UFC 291 on Saturday. You have Bellator versus Ryzen on Saturday. And you have Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence on Saturday as well. Did I say Saturday, Friday? What did I say? Pretty sure I said Saturday for all of them. Yeah. Yeah, don't forget to watch those fights, because you might have to pick and choose, but you're going to get I think you're going to get great fights on the UFC card. The boxing match is not bad. I don't know who's on the undercard, so I don't know what other kind of fights are going to be happening for that. And then Bellator versus Ryzen, not too bad as well. Wait, did I completely miss? That would be why. I like it when I fuck up. Not really. That would be why I cut it short, because I totally missed the Bellator versus Ryzen. Well, check it out. It's AJ McKee was supposed to fight Patricky Pitbull, and AJ McKee got injured, so now he's out, and Renato de Souza is taking his place to fight Patricky Pitbull. Let's see, who else we got? Koreshkov versus Larkin. You know what? Here, let's just do this. I'm gonna cover this one real fast. Oh shit. There we go. Pitbull versus D'Souza. Horiguchi versus Shinryu. I can't believe I don't know how I surpassed this whole thing. I was just like UFC focused apparently. But Bellator versus Ryzen 2 happening Saturday, July 29th in the US, but in Japan it's on Sunday. So Saitama Super Arena. We got Koreshkov versus Lorenz Larkin. Koreshkov being a former Bellator champion, and Lorenz Larkin being a former UFC fighter. also the son of Barry Larkin, who used to play for the Cincinnati Reds. But this is Koreshkov against Ben Henderson. Pretty good fighter, good strikes. Lawrence Larkin with the flying knee as well. Kind of the same type of fighter. But yeah, it should be a decent fight. I mean, Lawrence Larkin's good, Koreshkov good. And you know, two big Bellator stars to start off that main card. And then you got Kana Watanabe versus Vida Arteaga. Man, of course I had to bump into the hard names here. Watanabe, though, is she's a Bellator fighter against Arteaga, both Bellator fighters. This is Bellator versus Ryzen, so that's why I'm mentioning that, because usually it's against a Ryzen fighter. So instead, this one's set up a little bit different. Last time it was like Bellator versus Ryzen for the top 5 fights or something like that in the main card, but this one is looking more like a lot of Bellator fighters against each other. Then you got Danny Sabatello versus Magomedov. Sabatello I've covered before. He had those couple big fights with Daniel Strauss, I think. Either way, he's a really damn good wrestler. Lots of takedowns, lots of suplexes and throws, and good ground and pound. He's got good striking. Talks a lot, backs it up most of the time, and he's fighting Magomedov. You know, he's one of those kind of Dagestani guys. Good wrestling, but good striking as well. And doesn't talk a whole lot, but is definitely a great fighter. Should be a good fight there. Then we got Kyoji Horiguchi versus Makoto Shinryu. Kyoji Horiguchi is a former UFC fighter, as well as is in Bellator, but also fights for Ryzen. I don't even know. They go back and forth so much. That'd be why they're co-promoting, because they do business together easily. So Horiguchi, if you follow UFC, you know, you've heard his name before. He was always at the top of the division in the lightweight division in the UFC, and you know, fought a lot of big names over there too. As far as Shinryu, I don't know a whole lot about him, but he looks to be one of those guys that is getting a lot of finishes. So that one should be exciting. And then you got your main event, Patricky Pitbull versus Roberto de Souza. There was another name mixed in there. This was like last minute too. This just happened yesterday, I think yesterday was when I heard about it. About AJ McKee getting hurt. It might have been Tuesday, but I mean, that's a damn shame. AJ McKee was part of the first Bellator versus Ryzen in over the new year. But yeah, he's fought both of the Pitbull brothers before. Actually, I think he's fought Patricio Pitbull before, and now he was gonna fight the other Pitbull brother, and unfortunately he got hurt. So, but yeah, Pitbull, one of the exciting guys in Bellator, well-known name, one of those names that popped up on the UFC roster actually. Well, so did AJ McKee though. That was last week when I talked about that. You know, that there's talks about Bellator getting sold, and possibly some of the bigger name fighters being absorbed into the UFC, with PFL being the front runner for a buyer for Bellator. So who knows? But yeah, Pitbull is one of their most exciting fighters. Him and his brother both headline fights. Both have been champs before, I believe, and both always in big fights. And his opponent is Roberto de Souza. I don't know a whole lot about him, but he is a Ryzen fighter, and that's how they're gonna end that event. That's the main event, taking the place of AJ McKee. So you know, at least the main event is true Bellator versus Ryzen. Didn't look at the undercard much. Didn't see a whole lot going on down there. So, yeah, decent event for Bellator and Ryzen. All right, so that about does it now. Since I screwed that one up, I went ahead and went through it somewhat quickly. You know, Bellator events can be touch and go. Could be a really great card with not a lot of well-known fighters, or it could be a great card with lots of well-known fighters. But there's a lot of cards that you just don't even hear about, and that's kind of how Bellator is. But like I said, they're up on the market right now to be sold. So we'll see what happens with all of their fighters in that organization. After that happens, we'll see who winds up absorbing all the fighters, and if the Bellator name and all that goes away, or we'll see what happens with all of it. That'll be for another show. So once again, you have Bellator versus Rizin, Spence versus Crawford, UFC 291. Lots of big things going on this weekend. Check it out. I can't wait till tomorrow so I can do a little bit of work in the morning and then get my ass back home for the weekend. And like I said, I got to go back out of town next week. I'm hoping to be back by the time the show is supposed to be on Thursdays like always. But who knows? Either way, I'll have the show to recap UFC 291 and all the greatness that happened there, and recap the boxing and Bellator versus Rizin, everything else we talked about, and to preview the next week's fights, like always. So, don't forget, next week, Thursday, 7 p.m., right here, Going Around's YouTube podcast channel. Don't forget to follow me on all my social media. It's been going on down there. Going Around's podcast everywhere except for Twitter. Maybe it's not Twitter anymore. It's X now. I don't know, whatever the fuck it is. It's Going Around's pod. I'm on there. So, yeah, that's about it. I will see you next week. Thanks to my pops. He's saying good scramble. Appreciate it, pops. Thanks for watching. Patrick, thanks for joining in as well. Make sure you guys come back next week. I'm out. I'm going to start packing so I can get my ass home tomorrow. Take it easy. Have a good weekend. Peace.